Welcome back, and I'm Dr. Julie, and I am so looking forward to sharing with you about some new information about circadian rhythms. And the first piece of information I want to share with you is how many people are already applying circadian rhythms to their own lifestyles to improve their sleep habits, their exercise habits. And I'm going to share that story with you. And then I'm going to be talking about some current events in the world of circadian rhythms. And then we're going to talk a little bit about your own circadian rhythm and how you can test to see if you're right on target with your rhythm or if you need to make a few little adjustments. We're going to go over those three areas. So to start out with is the story. All right, so I was at an event. It was this really fancy kind of like top of the floor office building in a commercial building with about 100 people are in there. And there's fancy food, there's fancy drinks. The first person that I talked with was a young woman who's a mother. She's also an attorney. And we started talking about circadian rhythms, of course, because the first thing that you do at like a cocktail party is ask the other person what they do, and then they ask you what you do. And of course, an attorney is going to say, I'm an attorney. And I'm going to say, well, I teach circadian rhythms. So that opens up a whole new conversation. What was so interesting is that this woman is in her 20s. She has a newborn baby, and she already knows how to apply circadian rhythms to help the sleep of her newborn infant. So I was really pleased, and I was at the same time surprised that this information has already kind of like drifted to the younger people and that they're using it on a regular basis. So she said what she knew about when she first had her baby shower was one of the moms in her group gave her a gift that was called this Hatch baby light. So that's the brand. And this baby light basically works through circadian rhythms to try to help the mom's baby get to sleep. And how it works through this circadian rhythm lighting is that it puts out light that is not blue or white light during the evening before the baby's bedtime. And then in the morning, it will then cascade, of course, the light that is supposed to be more energizing and bright to help the baby wake up in the morning. So I thought this was really interesting because now they have baby lights that are basically mimicking the kind of light that's out in nature, which is exactly what babies need to try to get to sleep. So I thought that was fascinating. And she was telling me how the friends in her group, who are all young moms, they know how to use these lights. They understand the science behind it about blue light kind of being activating, kind of disrupting sleep, and how it's better to have red light in the evening so that your baby can sleep more soundly, so your baby can make more melatonin in the evening. So all of this connection, I was really surprised and impressed that this young mom knew all of the science already. So now I'm at the same event, same party, and I go and talk with another stranger, and this one's a commercial real estate developer, and he's on the other end of the spectrum. He's retirement age, and he is somebody who, in our conversation, said to me, oh, circadian rhythms? Yeah, I'm doing that. And he said how he was implementing circadian rhythms is that when he does his morning exercise, so he says he gets out of a mat, and he begins his morning by doing these stretches, and he does them outside. Now, he said he used to do them inside because it's warmer inside and more comfortable, until he heard some probably media outlets or something he read that said it's better for your circadian rhythm if you get sunlight first thing in the morning. So he says, okay, I'm going to try this. I'm going to go outside in the sun with my mat, with my, yoga mat instead of in the house, and I'll do this outside. And he said he did this for about a month. And then he stopped after about 4 weeks. And now he's doing his exercises indoors because he says, oh, it's too cold to go outside. So the conversation I had with him, without getting into, do you have any circadian problems? We didn't get into that. But the comment I made to him was, well, when you're working in your office and you're sitting next to the window, just try to crack that window just a bit open, so that you're going to get some of the ribbons of natural sunlight into your eyes. So I don't know if you can tell where I'm facing, but I'm actually facing the window in my office. So my desk is here and my window is right in front of me so that I can get the streams of light that are natural light, because you can never mimic natural light, no matter how smart that engineer is, no matter how bright that blue light or white light is. You can never get close to the rays of sunlight when we're talking about natural sunlight and its intensity on the effect of our body. So natural sunlight always rules. There's just no way around it. It's the most powerful light that is available and in abundance. I mean, the circadian biologists, the researchers that do research in this field, they always say photons are free. So you're not going to see a circadian researcher say, oh, go get this like blue light headset, or go get this blue light lamp and put it on your desk in the morning when you're feeling sleepy. What they're going to tell you to do is they're going to say, get next to a window or get outside first thing in the morning, even if it's just for a few minutes. And that brings me to another story. I'm having lunch with a friend of mine, and she says, yes, I'm circadian as well, because I go outside to have my cup of coffee in the morning, and it's on my balcony, and I definitely am out, whether it's warm or cold outside, I'm out with my cup of coffee so that I get drenched in that natural sunlight first thing in the morning. And you may be wondering, okay, well, what's the difference between first thing in the morning versus a couple hours into the morning? Like, does it have to be first thing in the morning? And I would say that probably first thing in the morning is where you're going to notice the most difference if you have something to improve. Now, some people are already naturally in the rhythm. They already feel, and this is how you know you're in the rhythm, you feel alert and awake when you wake up. So when you wake up in the morning, you're going to feel kind of this like sharpness in your mental cognitive mindset. And you're not going to feel like, oh, I feel so tired and I need to get back in bed. You just have this natural sort of energy in the morning. And then you might, but let me just differentiate between someone who's running on adrenaline. So there are some people who wake up in the morning and they're ready to go and they're all revved up, but you can tell that kind of energy is a little bit more frantic or frenetic. And you may know some of those people. They may come into the office and they're ready to go and they're amped up and they're hyped up, but it's kind of a stressful energy. It doesn't feel like the person who comes into the office and is joyful and energetic. You know, there's a difference. So you want your energy in the morning to feel natural, to feel like you had a restorative evening sleep. That's one clue to figure out if you're really circadian or not. And then the other clue would be during the day, you don't have a hard time multitasking. Now, there's a lot of reasons for us to not be able to multitask well. It's probably because our brains just aren't really born to multitask that well. But you know, and you notice a difference, say, when you are trying to go through the usual steps of all the multiple things that you do during the day. And then there's some days where there's just more interference, like, oh, where did I set my keys down? Or why can't I get myself working efficiently today? There just seems to be more stops and gaps in the process of how you go through the flow of your day. So that's also another way to sort of evaluate if your circadian rhythm is in sync with your body, is that the days that you feel you have super high performance, and you have those days where you're like, I'm on top of it, I'm just ready to go, everything falls into place, and I'm awake, I'm alert, I don't feel like I need extra supplements or coffee to kind of get me going, to get me through the day. That's kind of the natural circadian rhythm synchronization. And that's why circadian rhythms should be important to you. And it's not just about morning sunlight and avoiding blue light at night. There's so many more nuances to it, and we'll get into those. So it was interesting that talking with these people that are outside of my circle and in my circle, there's so many people who are already augmenting their circadian rhythm. So let me get back to morning light. Why is it that morning sunlight is the most important? Think of the sun's rays as presenting your body with information. All right. It's kind of like the way invisible waves of music or sound present you with information. You can hear it, so you know you're getting that frequency. Now, the interesting thing with light is you see and you feel that sunlight maybe hitting your skin or hitting your head, but you may not necessarily feel that it's imprinting a timestamp for your body. So you don't feel that it may necessarily be encroaching in on the internal organs themselves, that signal, and changing the way that your body processes information. And that's what morning sunlight is doing. It's giving you a very specific timestamp. Think of it as, maybe it's easier to think about it as a musical frequency. And then it has an effect. So cause and then effect on your body, just like the rhythm. And you only need about 3 beats of your favorite song for you to feel that kind of, you start to get amped up a little bit and you're like, yeah, here's the song, and you're anticipating the rest of it. That is what your brain does with that morning sunlight. It actually takes in that frequency and then it goes, yes, I know this rhythm and I know what I need to do with it. And that timestamp floods into the rest of your body. So it's an electrical signal, then that gets turned into another signal that reaches the rest of the organs of the body in an indirect way. And it starts to kind of sculpt how the day is going to play out, how your chemicals, your hormones, your transmitters are going to play out for the rest of the day, because that first timestamp of morning sunlight comes in either at the right time or at the wrong time. Now, how would it be if it came in at the wrong time? This would be a day when you didn't go outside, you didn't get any morning sunlight, and maybe you just stayed indoors from when you woke up to when you went to sleep. You didn't even crack the window open, so you got no sort of even shred of a ribbon of that natural sunlight until maybe 5 in the afternoon, or maybe it was late afternoon, and then you get that sort of imprint from the natural sunlight. That's late in the day. So by that time, all of your hormones and transmitters, they didn't have that timestamp to give them the message to synchronize everything. So now they're just kind of going on sort of remembering the habit from before. So everything's going to be a little bit off, because even though they got artificial light, I want you to know artificial light. So for example, the LED light that's in front of me, it's white light, but it's broadcasting a timestamp that's constant. It's not very bright. It doesn't even compare with sunlight. We're talking sunlight is like hundreds of thousands of lux on a sunny day. And this LED is maybe 500, right? So it's broadcasting a different timestamp. It's giving my body a different message. And that information is entering my body. So looking at that LED is information that is changing the way my body functions. But that's why I'm sitting near a window, because I'm also getting the background light, which is hopefully going to kind of diffuse out that low level LED. Now we've talked about the stories of people aligning their circadian rhythm, and my friend who drinks coffee on the patio, so she's getting wonderful circadian rhythm light in the morning. Now, she mentioned to me that she has like a blue light little, it's almost like a little blue light halo that she puts on the days that she doesn't have time to get outside. And she asked me about this, and she said, what do you think about that? And I said, I think that's a great idea for traveling. But again, that blue light is not going to compare with the natural sunlight of the sun. So it's kind of like if you were to say, well, I'm eating this Philly cheesesteak because I don't have any other food. It's like, definitely eat that, because otherwise you're going to go hungry today, versus, oh, I'm going to have this beet salad with like wonderful organic free range chicken, and it's got an olive oil vinaigrette dressing. There's just differences. So it's kind of like, well, fuel yourself with that artificial blue light if that's all you have and you're trying to get your rhythm set. But if you have the natural stuff, which is free, interestingly, it's free, you want to get that as much as you can, more so than the things that we have to pay for and that are man-made and that don't have as much positive effect on our body anyway. So that's the key. So those are the stories. Now the physiology. So the physiology is interesting. What you're doing with that morning light is that you're also setting one really important hormone that you've already heard about, and that's called cortisol. And that's a steroid hormone. And you're familiar with it because, you may go to the dermatologist and they'll give you a prescription for hydrocortisone, or someone might have asthma and they have to get a prescription for prednisone, or you might have a really serious rash and the dermatologist gives you a fluosinide that's like a super strong steroid. So these are all in the family of steroids. Those are topical steroid creams, and we're talking about a steroid hormone, cortisol, that your body makes. And this steroid hormone, what it does is it's kind of like a stress hormone. So I think of it as it's kind of like your morning tonic. So before you're about to wake up, the first thing that happens is the cortisol is going to start to rise about an hour or so right before you normally wake up. And when that cortisol starts to rise, what happens is you get this shift. So you get this shift from this peaceful, quiet, silent sleeping, eyes closed. You probably look angelic when you're sleeping, to suddenly you open your eyes, your personality comes forward, your mind locks in and is awake. So that shift is I would say cortisol contributes to this shift. It's a big part of you moving from that sleeping, silent, angelic you to the awake, activated, sort of get things done you. And of course, the sleep hormone is melatonin. That one's going to shift down, and your cortisol is going to shift up and help you with that daytime transition. So cortisol is the hormone that's the key to this, and it really reaches a peak first thing in the morning. And then it's driven by your circadian rhythm. So you can kind of get a really nice peak of this cortisol if you continue to have this like daytime exposure to morning light. It's really part of how you build this better version of yourself, or the optimal version of yourself. And then that cortisol just slowly starts to diminish later on in the day. So kind of it's like an advanced ski slope. It goes up and then it just starts to go down. And you want it to go down because then as you get towards the evening, your body's sort of preparing and slowing down and getting ready to turn into that other version of you, that sleeping, silent, quiet version of yourself. So that's kind of the key to cortisol. So that's part of your circadian. And now we're going to get into the third topic, which is current events. All right, so the current event that's been out there that you will see so much media on, because what the media likes to do, I've noticed, and this is of course my opinion, is that it will take one small piece of information from some sphere of circadian rhythms, and then it will run with it. And sometimes it's relevant information and it's high quality, but then sometimes it's questionable or it may not be high quality. So the most recent run with tagline is that melatonin and heart failure, and this new link that researchers are making with melatonin and heart failure. Well, let me present that study to you. But before I do, I want to present with you another study that was published in 2022 in a journal called Frontiers of Cardiovascular Medicine. So this is actually a cardiologist's journal, or cardiothoracic surgeons, but anyway, it's a specialty medical journal. And this is actually a published research article that you can find on the NIH website. And it's about melatonin and its protective effects for cardiovascular disease. So that's actually the title of the article, is Melatonin and its protective effect or beneficial effect on cardiovascular disease. So exactly the opposite of what this new media tidal wave of information on melatonin is going into. So let me present the old study first. So good news first. So this old study, again, 2022, not that old, but they're talking about how melatonin is a hormone that has antioxidant activity, it has neuroprotective properties, and they also state, so the article states that numerous studies have shown that melatonin has significant function in not only the antioxidant activity and neuroprotective properties sphere, but also in cardiovascular disease. And they say that it even has anti-aging properties. So you think, wow, melatonin, this is so fascinating. And again, your body makes melatonin, and it's made in the pineal gland, at least the kind of melatonin that we talk about that's circulating, that is used to help you fall asleep. So in the circadian world, that tiny, tiny pineal gland in the center of your brain is where melatonin is made, and its secretion not only signals the time for you to go to bed and rest, but getting enough of this secretion is protective for your neurons. It has antioxidant activity. It's protective for your immune system. And the researchers again say it may even have anti-aging properties. And of course, the natural melatonin that you make is somewhat different than the melatonin that you would take as a supplement, but they are talking about melatonin as a supplement and having these effects in addition to natural melatonin in this research article that they're talking about. And the reason that they make this conclusion is because they're looking at animal models, and they found that even in animal models, when there's heart damage, so they can take a rodent model, and if it has, say, a heart attack, they can reperfuse, meaning they create more blood flow into the heart to try to repair that injured heart tissue. And when the animal models have melatonin given at the same time as this reperfusion, there's less death of the cardiac muscle. So basically, the melatonin is able to help rescue more of that damaged heart tissue than without melatonin. So there are definitely studies that show this beneficial effect of melatonin on heart tissue, on many other areas of the body. So this study now that has come out that you're hearing about, that has gone into mainstream media, this is actually not a published study. So when I tried to look at the article, I can't find the article because it's based on what's called an abstract, meaning that the scientists came together and they're like, oh, this is something we discovered, but we haven't put it through editorial board, and we haven't vetted it with other scientists, and we haven't had anyone else look at our data to make sure that we made the conclusions correctly based on the data that we looked at. So that kind of shows you the quality of the study is, it's not a study, it's an abstract. It's a conclusion that some group made without having anyone else vet it yet. And so when studies are published in medical journals, scientific journals, usually they're vetted in different ways. So this is, again, an abstract. So I want you to know the quality of it is not as high as the study I was just telling you about that was published in Frontiers of Cardiovascular Medicine. So this new abstract that came out, they made a link between melatonin and heart failure. And I want you to know the scientist who is speaking in a short video on the website talking about this abstract, she says, there's not a causal link. So she says, because the way that this study was done, which was they looked at electronic health records, and they looked at a number of people who had heart failure and a lot of other diseases. So people who have heart failure often have other organ problems or other medical problems, not just the heart failure. And then they looked at people who were in the same age range and tried to get similar people to compare. But the people who were on melatonin, they said, had more heart failure and heart mortality than the groups that weren't on melatonin. But there's a problem with this assumption in that when you take two groups of people and you haven't compared all the diseases that they have, and sometimes people who have severe insomnia, they will be taking supplements more often on a regular basis because their insomnia or their chronic health conditions are more severe, say, than a group that never had to start melatonin because they may have insomnia, but it's not that bad, and they just use other lifestyle modifications, or they don't feel they need to go to a supplement on a long term. So you have a group of people where that medication was entered in their electronic medical health record for a number of months. So they say over a year, and then another group who has insomnia and they don't have melatonin entered in their medical records. So it's kind of hard to delineate and compare. Are we comparing apples to oranges is the basic question. And I suspect that we may be. And we'll have to find out when they actually get this abstract to the level of a research paper that gets published in a research journal. So I want you to know it was a correlation. They said it was not causation. They called it a cross-sectional study that the researcher actually said doesn't provide information on causality of melatonin in heart failure. So they specifically said it doesn't show a causal link, but the media ran with it. And so you're going to see lots and lots of videos come up and lots of media that cover that as a risk for melatonin. But I want you to know there are studies that show exactly the opposite. So it's not a matter of weighing which side has more studies, right? We're not comparing the weight of wood. We're comparing the quality. That's the most important thing to compare when you're looking at two completely opposite outcomes. It's the quality of the studies that we want to look at. All right, thanks for joining me today on Circadian Rhythms Insight, and I look forward to presenting you with more information on your circadian rhythms so that you can optimize your own health.